This is a profession that is deeply fulfilling. Through the dedication, the passion, and the continuous learning, early childcare educators leave unforgettable memories and influence the lives of children.
How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the EdUp Canada podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together.
Welcome back to the EdUp Canada podcast. My name is Michael Sangster, and I'm your host for today's podcast. Really excited to be joined by a couple of people today that have extensive experience in education in Canada, but have done a lot of work around early childhood education and early learning. And that has become such a crucial part of the training that our member organizations do at the National Association of Career Colleges because of all the new initiatives governments have been doing to make sure we have a robust and well-staffed and well-trained childcare system in Canada. So the colleges that we're dealing with today, the Canadian Business College, has a long history, and their program equips students with the skills they need to support young children's cognitive, physical, and social development. With a hybrid model of online and in-person exams, including hands-on labs at their Mississauga and Scarborough campus, they provide a flexible yet comprehensive education that includes Practicum placements. We'll get into that. But so as we get started, let me just introduce you to the two guests we've got today, and then we'll ask them to say a few words about what they think about this sector and why they're so excited about the work they do. But we're first joined by Grace DiMarcantonio, an early childhood education assistant program instructor who has over 25 years of experience mentoring and guiding countless students in their journey to becoming early childhood professionals. We're also very fortunate to be joined today by Dean Tremain, the Executive Vice President of the Canadian Business College, who also comes with over 20 years of experience in the education sector. And I've had the pleasure of working with him on the National Association of Career Colleges Board, which he serves on, and also he serves on the Career Colleges Ontario Board and their executive. So welcome, Grace and Dean.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm going to jump right in here because there's two of you today. I'll guide the questions a little bit. So Dean, why are you so damn excited to work in this sector? Because you genuinely exude excitement about the work you do.
Well, I guess that's a really deep question that can go in many different ways. My initial gut reaction, as it would be, is when you're in the business of helping people get someplace better in their lives, it's pretty easy to get excited about it. I've often said the career college sector is really a heart and soul business, and it's all about making those lasting impressions in our students' lives and our staff's lives, and obviously sort of trying to guide and allow opportunities for people to be more successful or change their lives or, improve their career, change their career trajectory, whatever they like to do. It doesn't matter whether someone's coming to us as a hobbyist and they want to take a course or whether they're coming to us as a complete change in their career. Anybody that's interested in education, I just believe it's an investment in future equity. So that's why I think I get pretty excited about it.
Let me throw this over to you then, Grace, because I bet you feel the same way about the sector, but also why do you think career colleges, regulated career colleges, are so important in early childhood education?
So why I believe that this career college program is beneficial to my students is they're coming from a wealth of knowledge, both personal as well as professional. They're bringing a lot to the table, and with the program and the new curriculum that has been implemented both in childcare, they're coming with a great passion for learning. And I think a lot of my students have this is a second career for them. So they're doing it with more of an interest in the profession and working with children, and the interest is there for them.
Grace, I'm going to stick with you after that answer. Talk to me a little bit about, are you an instructor or are you a mentor?
I like to consider myself both because I've had over 25 years of experience. And in a world where the influence of positive and early learning experiences are pivotal to shaping young minds of the new generation, the decision to become an early childhood educator holds tremendous significance. They say that in the first 5 years of a child's life, the positive experiences and warmth and responsive relationships that stimulate children's development, they create millions of connections in their brains. And in fact, children's brains develop connections faster in the first 5 years than in any other time in their life. So this is the time when the foundations for early learning and health and behavior throughout their life are laid down. So I'm passionate about fostering that love for learning and being a part of those children's growth. This is a profession that is deeply fulfilling. Through the dedication, the passion, and the continuous learning, early childcare educators leave unforgettable memories and influence the lives of children, laying down that solid foundation for their future success and shaping the next generation and making the world a better place, just one child at a time. So when I deliver my classes, I don't just teach them the theory or teach them about routines or different, day-to-day routines and structures. I teach them about the passion that I have it comes through into my teaching. Like I generally deliver my passion for the profession through my daily lectures, through the hands-on learning and creating opportunities for those students to be able to explore and experience the process through the eyes of a child.
That's powerful. Wow. There's a lot to take in there. And that first 5 years of your life message, I've heard that before. So it's neat to hear you talk about that because people don't understand the importance of this program. I want to go to Dean here and talk about something technical because you don't teach the program, because you're not in the classroom, but you serve on a couple of boards that deal with these issues. So I'm interested in your views. You teach this program in a hybrid format. We were forced as a sector to move into new practices during COVID and have continued some of those practices. I'm interested in your views as an industry leader on hybrid learning and how it works well in this program. Concerns you have, ideas you've got for the future a little bit too.
Well, the COVID experience, that's because I'm going to chalk it up to, is now an experience, and hopefully it's something that's in the past and we don't experience again. It did change the way we do things. As someone that's been in the education space for a long time, there was something to be said, as I'm sure Grace would say, about being able to look at see the whites of your pupils' eyes when they're sitting in the classroom and interacting and having social engagement. Well, that obviously changed, and it sort of made the way we have to change ourselves and sort of become a little bit different. And to use the famous COVID word, pivot. We kind of had to look at things and how can you deliver it in a successful way still, but obviously in an efficient manner. So why hybrid? Well, the benefits of hybrid, it seems the world has found a way to be busier than usual. The cost of gas, the cost of parking, the cost of everything has gone up. So the ability to teach as Grace does remotely and still drives an instructor-led environment, but remotely allows students to not have to worry about some of those extra costs. It also allows them the luxury of being in a comfortable environment, working on things. Obviously, there's still, the interaction and the engagement is still extremely high. It just sort of changes the geography. So that part's extremely important. When it comes to the labs and the other things or the on-campus parts that they would do within the program in the hybrid model, that is, again, to get some of the other aspects, the social side. You heard Grace speak, very passionately about, just the interactions with the early learning side of things. Well, it's the same thing with the students in the classroom and with Grace having that interaction, because it is a role out in the workforce that is very face-to-face. There's going to be no remote early childcare, jobs available because it just doesn't work that way. It's all about being there and interacting with them specifically. So getting together and doing the practical side also, sort of aids and embeds that learning part of it. And, and I think a hybrid model, if it's done successfully, really can touch on the three different learning styles. The audio and visual is always there because if, again, you're on camera, Grace is interacting with her class, doesn't matter whether it's in person or on camera. But the kinesthetic part is when you get to the campus and you touch and you do different things and you go through motions. And I'm sure, obviously, in those instances, even coming to a campus to write an exam is again, is a different sort of function and a different physical function. So it's trying to, I sort of believe, get the best of all worlds. Is there going to be changes in the future? I guess we see how things go. Right now, we've been what I would say reactive and adaptive to the way the world sort of changed. And as we move forward, we'll continue to stay nimble and adjust and change as it sort of dictates. So if there's a better way to do things in the future, or if there's a more in-demand way of doing things, then we'll evolve. I mean, the benefit, as you can hear, through Grace's passion is, she's all about creating the best experience she can create. So that's really what I focus on in the sector, is how can we create the best experience given the circumstances that we have. Would I like to see in class more traditional, the way we've done it in the past? Sure, but maybe I'm just a dinosaur in the way I think now. Maybe it's just because that's what I was used to. There's ways that we'll move forward. There's things that'll change. We'll continue to evolve. And I believe the best thing to happen is to be adaptive and, be responsive as things change. Hence the reason, the agility aspect of our business and our ability to quickly move, make those necessary changes and adopt, I think are really some of the key important factors that we have within this sector.
And it gets lost that our sector is not the only one that went online and went hybrid. Work went online, life went online and has stayed there. Our organization doesn't have an office. We talk about, will we get together again? But then at the same time, I can hire somebody in Red Deer and I can hire somebody in Moncton. I can hire somebody in Winnipeg, put them to work inside the organization because we don't have to come together. So there's a lot of strengths. But Grace, I'm going to go to you because at the end of that, we talked about, or in the middle of that, we talked about practicum. So there's the on-site skills training at the college, but there's also time with an employer, is there not?
So yes, actually what I like to do in my teachings is I like to empower the students in understanding how valuable this profession is to not just those parents that go out and need childcare, but to the society, and the benefits of having a quality program need some hands-on experiences. So I provide them with the knowledge and I also provide them with resources. And if we were in class, we would be able to be touching things, exploring things, being able to kind of relate to the materials. And so what I have brought into my teaching is that in order to be a resourceful early childhood educators, we need to learn to be flexible and we need to be resourceful. So I get the students to bring in the materials online. So everyone experiences, let's say, for example, the other day, we all made Play-Doh. So everybody in the class made Play-Doh and we all presented it to each other. And we were actually supporting each other, troubleshooting, because some, students made their Play-Doh stickier than others. So it was a way for us all to collaborate and come together and learn from each other in a virtual world. And so those are the quality experiences that we also have and experience in early years as well. And so for me, to bring in those experiences online and to have those experiences with, the students collaborating in a virtual world and making it still possible to have and explore those materials was actually a benefit for me as well.
Great answer. So I'm going to pivot here a little bit because we're talking about those skills they take into the workforce. So Dean, you have got a very strong focus. You talk about quality all the time. You talk about career readiness. What are the job prospects like for graduates of one of your programs? How does the college support them in securing roles, employment, and maybe even a little bit about the admissions process, about Talk to me a little bit about the kind of people you allow into the programs to make sure they're ready to be successful.
That entire, if we start sort of at the beginning, starts with a student having an interest in understanding more about the program and what it would be like to go to school and take that program. Obviously, through the admissions process, they spend some time sort of, doing discovery questions and asking kind of what that prospective student or student that's considering, starting school, what are the things they want to achieve? What are the things they like to do? What are different pieces? And so we kind of want to sort of make sure that people understand where they're going and get a bit of an understanding as to whether this is the right path for them. If it's not the right path, it's better to establish and redirect in the early stages. If someone is there, obviously there are requirements. I mean, nobody can just show up at our school and start tomorrow. You still have to meet a minimum expectation as far as education level. And if you don't have the North American education or the traditional Canadian education that we would speak to from a high school diploma perspective, then they can also write an entrance level, scholastic level exam, which helps identify where their education level presently sits. Once they've met those minimum requirements, then we would go through an enrollment process and obviously start to get them ready, have them speak to our finance team to understand what's the best way for them to fund school, whether it's through self-funding or whether it's through, student finance or student loans available to them, or through third-party loan vendors such as banks or RESPs or other different, the various different things that you could go through. When someone starts school, they've gone through a fairly diligent process to start school, and the evaluations are there, the considerations are there, and more importantly, hopefully that the student reflection's there so that they understand what they're getting into. And then as they get into the process, obviously, they get in with Grace, and we can just imagine, again, just listening to her talk, what that experience is like, which is very positive. Obviously, Grace is one of our pivotal instructors at Canadian Business College, and those are the ones that really, that's where the rubber meets the road. It doesn't really matter too much about me as an executive. It's more about the people that are in the classroom every day that make the most difference. So as they go through, we then start to guide them, and you take all the learnings that they'd have in the classroom. And then as they get near the end, they would have some interaction with our career services department. Our career services department does the same sort of assessments, has conversations with them about what would you like to do, where would you like to go, different pieces. Sometimes those conversations can be earlier on because, obviously the program as it stands now also has some external practicum. So there'd be some exposure to real work out there in the labor market prior to graduating. So there's going to be some exposure at different aspects to getting a better understanding of what that looks like to be in the labor market effectively. And then, the career services team will work with them on making sure their marketing materials are in good shape, that they're well presented. We do have different mechanisms and forms in place to do different mock interviews and different things like that to prepare people as they, get ready to go through, which I believe is probably the most difficult part of the entire process, which is, finding the career. I always say there's two very scary moments in the student life cycle. And the first one is the night before you start school. Most of our learners are mature learners and sometimes going back to school and maybe haven't been in a school setting in a number of years. So there's that bit of a bit of freeze factor that comes in. You go, oh my gosh, have I done the right thing? Can I go? You start to get yourself a little bit worked up. And if they get past that point, then Grace and the other instructors on the team can obviously start to help the people feel reassured about making the right choice and continue to move forward. The second fear factor or freeze moment is, before you're trying to now go out and find a job. It's easy when we tell you you're going to go to school from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the next 42 weeks. We give them the schedule. We tell them it becomes like clockwork, but now you've got to disrupt the schedule, adapt to other schedules, and then now try to find a new schedule with a career. So, it's a very sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. It takes effort. It takes investment, personal and professional investment, both from our team and for the student themselves. And all of those things, when all the energies are pushed in the same direction, creates a bit of a tidal wave. And, as you move forward, that wave hopefully comes crashing down in a great experience, not in a bad one, where at least all that energy is moving forward positively and gets you and hopefully moves them to where they want to be. And And, my biggest thing with, why is it important, to sort of sum that all up is I believe we have three major critical issues in Ontario at this point. Number one is healthcare. It's obviously a major issue. It's underserved. It's going to be very difficult moving forward. Number two is childcare. It's going to be that major sort of impact point. And then the third is long-term care. So when we look at all three of those, if you think of a young family today trying to raise children in a very expensive world, you really want to make sure that the people that are looking after your child or making that positive impact on your child while you're trying to create a means to an end so that you can survive and afford to live today, then you want to make sure you have the right people. So that's what Grace does great. And that's what we're focused on, is trying to get that outcome. And that's one labor market need that is obviously incredibly important, because childcare is difficult to find. It can be very expensive. And, there needs to be more of an investment in it because it is such a need.
Can't agree more. Dean and I become friends and golfers once in a while. I thought your short game was going to be one of the critical needs that you saw in your life these days, but I'm glad to see you focused on the tangible, factual things that matter. So we ask all of the guests in our podcast one question, and that is, and I'll start with you, Grace, to put you on the spot a little bit, but we ask everybody to talk about a mentor in their life, somebody that really helped them in just a minute or two, somebody that left a difference in your life that made you the instructor or the person you are. And we do this because that's what you do every day for students. And I think it's important to stop and talk about it because it's something we don't think about often enough.
So for me, I would say that when I was actually in elementary school, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So it was a learning disability that back in I'm not going to age myself, but back in the 70s, it wasn't up forth and coming. So it was just coming into a realization for learning disabilities. And so I was actually in grade 6 and I couldn't read. I could understand when the teacher was speaking, but I couldn't write. And so every year I would be getting really bad grades on my report cards. And both my parents were immigrants to the country, so they didn't speak any English. And so they just figured that I was lazy, I wasn't trying, I couldn't do it. And they didn't really understand that I was truly struggling. And so one day, the teacher had asked me to read out loud. And of course, me being unable to do so started to kind of cause trouble in the classroom. And so I was sent down to the principal's office. And after class, the teacher had pulled me aside. And she was relatively a young teacher, so she had just graduated from Teachers College. And she said to me, all right, so you didn't want to read in front of the class, but will you read in front of me? And I looked at her, I looked at the book, and I couldn't read. So she actually called my parents in for an interview. And she explained to my parents that it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to do it, or that I wasn't, that I could do it or had the ability to do it, but just wasn't putting forth the effort. It was the fact that I just couldn't do it. So she came to my house every day after school for an hour, and she actually helped me to retrain my brain. And I had to go right back down to the basics and start to learn how to read and write all over again. And I often wonder to myself that if that teacher had not taken that time to fully understand, would I be where I am today? And would I have the education and the life that I have today? And probably not. And so I think that was one of the reasons why I am so passionate about what I do and helping others to see that learning is about different styles. We're not all the same. And so just supporting those students in understanding and seeing different ways of learning and understanding different ways of development is actually what I'm most passionate about, is that development and knowledge. So becoming a mentor to these students and understanding their life experiences and being able to see them from the beginning of the class, and when they come to the class and they're feeling anxious and they don't know if they can do it, and me just walking alongside of them, supporting them, encouraging them, empowering them, and then seeing them on graduation day or seeing them in programs where they've obtained employment after their practicum and now are mentoring the new students just brings happiness to what I do, and just justifies the importance of what I do.
That experience is probably the best training with that teacher you had for you to go be an instructor today. She changed your life, didn't she? Thank you for sharing that. It means a lot. We've had a good reaction from people to these little stories because it reminds us all that we have an impact with our actions every day. People look to us and react based on the way we do things too. So that teacher went above and beyond, and that's an incredible story. So I'll ask Dean the same question, but I got to do it with a bit of an opening because Dean was named as a mentor to one of our earlier guests on the podcast, Chamara Pereira, who called on him as someone who taught him a lot about this sector. And that was a pretty neat moment, wasn't it, Dean?
Yeah, it really wasn't. And I thought it was very kind of him to say, and he's gone a long way, and I think he helped himself along the way. So I would never say that anything, fell because of me, but it was nice that, I do remember the day that he joined our team, and I remember those conversations well, and I'm happy to see what he's done with his life since then. So it's great.
Did you get a mentor that you can think of right away?
I mean, I've obviously got a real strong personal mentor and a real strong professional, someone that impacted me professionally. I'll sort of stay in the professional realm, but it's similar to the Chamara scenario, to be perfectly honest. So my current business partner, Julia Kennedy, so, she and I sort of entered the career college space around similar times within an organization. And prior to that, we had both been in the public education space. So there was some, interesting things we could talk about at that point. But, she ended up being somebody that I ended up working with very closely from all kinds of different aspects over the last 20 years. And remarkably now, here we are full circle, and we're business partners in ownership of Canadian Business College. But, she had a significant impact on sort of, it was a great second perspective when you looked at interactions with other people. We worked in a large $1 billion publicly traded company at that point. So you learn things a little bit differently in those environments as well. You're dealing with, we had 129 campuses in North America, and so you're dealing with different types of people and so on. So she was able to give me a second perspective, which is great. And hopefully at times I was able to do the same. But, she helped me really sort of, I'd say polish and fine tune a lot of, what I do today and some of the, ways I look at things. And I think we also had a lot in common from the way we looked at things, the way we looked at the world, the way we looked at the energy that we put into the business every day, which was relentless. There was no 9 to 5. It was, you do what you need to do because the people that you're supporting in that instance are going to be very important to you in the long run. And you want to make sure they know that you're there to support them. So on that side, from a professional perspective, I think that was great. And we continue to obviously work closely together today. And there's still moments in time when she has to make sure that my mind's on the right path. So that's good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one who has to do that with you, Dean, as you do it for me every day, right? You're constantly reminding me to get back on the right path.
That's right.
I'm going to just take a shot here at recapping our conversation because it's been valuable for me to let you guys go a little bit deeper than we usually do on some of these questions, because this whole topic, we're on a kind of 2-month campaign here of highlighting the successes around early childhood education in Canada and the importance of it. But we don't talk enough about the social impact of this training and the economic impact of this training, because without these important centers that take care of our children and train them and get them ready to go in those first 5 years, as Grace said, there's a lot of people that are going to have a tough time going to work in the morning. And we're going to need more and more of these people so that we can keep driving the economy and growing in other areas. And there's so many little tie-ins that go on from these trainings and these jobs that we learn more about as we dig deeper into it. So I want to thank our two guests, because what they did talk about is these professional programs, these focus programs, the great outcomes, the focus on the students and these small class sizes. And then at the far end, the focus on getting people ready to go into work. I really like the idea of those two big stress points, day one and day ending of a career college program, any education program, really. That's a really good way of looking at the stress levels. And we do try and be a part of both ends. And I know Dean would tell you stories of students they refused to admit because they weren't ready for the program and they wouldn't be successful, or help them go to another program. Even, Dean, I bet if we got deeper into it, you'd talk about someone you sent to another college because that was the better path for someone. And I appreciate both of you making the time today to be with us. I got over 50 years of experience on the phone here talking about the things they've done and they've learned. And I really appreciate that, and the support of the Canadian Business College. So I don't know if either one of you have a last word you want to say, but I think this has been a really good conversation for people. Dean, do you have a last thought? Or
No, just thank you, Michael, for driving a conversation that is obviously a major labor market need. And obviously, thank you for allowing Grace to participate, because regardless, I don't think it would really matter if we didn't have what she does and, that firsthand experience. Because I agree with you, what she said earlier about her mentor, there's the catalyst. Right there, we just found the catalyst. So we know right where Grace came from that moment. So I'm thankful she's on my team. And I thank you both for this chat. It was great.
Grace, anything you want to say before we drop off?
So just one other thing I'd like to say is this is actually an exciting time to become an early childhood educator, because there has been new investments from the federal and provincial government to make licensed childcare more affordable by lowering costs and increasing the number of childcare spaces that are available, which means that with the money that they've invested, there'll be more jobs for students. And this plan will support families, children, and also support better wages for childcare workers. Childcare matters to everyone, and every child is capable, competent, and has the capacity to do something amazing with their life. And early childhood educators are the forefront and the highly valued professionals. They're skilled, educated, and they nurture the young minds of the future. So that's pretty much how I'd like to end what I have to say.
I don't think there's anything left to add, Grace. That was absolutely perfect. So on that note, I'm going to thank you for joining us and listening in on the program. I'll thank you to our two guests who brought so much skill and experience to the table for the conversation today. And I look forward to welcoming you on next week's edition of the EdUp Canada podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the EdUp Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4- or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.